Hello, good evening. This is your friend, Tezra Mogas. I'm here again with our next virtual EAS networking event presentation. So, of course, whenever you're about to record a video or do an event, you notice every single flaw. Do I look in shape? Do I not look in shape? They always say the camera adds about 15 pounds, but it's okay. I'm not going to be self conscious anymore, I guess, at this point. Why does it matter? But before I get into it on the media, I want to talk about our next in-person networking event because you have a chance to experience this in person. And as you know, with our events, we want you to set the agenda. And the last time we spoke, the group that attends the in-person networking events, we decided, many of us, most of us, the people that decided to voice their opinion, decided to make it about mental health. So it's going to be about mental health. Monday, July 28th. It's going to be as interesting as I can make it. I'm dealing with a fire truck here on our favorite street, Bleecker Street, but let's try to keep going. If you can make it, Monday, July 28th, you know me, Tezra Mogas, I will never ever cancel. I'll never postpone anything. As long as I'm alive, I will be there. And I've already told them, I've asked if there's another program going on before my networking events, and no one has been able to provide me with an answer, of course. Nobody knows the schedule. I mean, it's 1 week in advance. How can you not know the schedule? Somebody knows the schedule. Hopefully, I get to the bottom of it. But without further ado, because I'm on limited time, let's get into our program of the day. So, as you know, but if you're new here, I'll tell you, our EAS events are inspired by many different people and many different organizations, actually, public, private, nonprofit, for-profit. I'm a fan of for-profit. I'm not a fan of nonprofit because nonprofit means you're getting paid by the government or you're getting paid by philanthropists. So one of the two. And me sitting around and waiting for the government to call me, I've tried that before in my life. Usually it doesn't end well. You'll be waiting your whole life. So anyways, this is actually a YouTube channel called Talks at Google. Google's a huge organization. They make money from advertising, in case you didn't hear. That's why all Google services are free, including Android. Samsung is able to use Android on all of their smartphones. They don't need to make their own operating system because they can download and install it for free without paying a licensing fee. Microsoft, for every single personal computer that's sold, if you're wondering how Microsoft makes its money, everyone that's in the business of manufacturing computers must pay Microsoft for the licensing fee for Microsoft Windows. No manufacturer is going to create their own operating system. And guess what? When you go to the store and you buy a new personal computer, you are paying the licensing fee. That's why computers are so expensive. If it wasn't for that licensing fee per computer, you'd probably be paying less than $500 for a computer, to be honest with you, because it doesn't cost that much to manufacture in China. So anyways, I don't know how I got into that. Oh, Google. So Talks at Google is a very interesting show that they have. I'm pretty sure it's continuing, but I don't think they make any money from it. Google has plenty of money, as you know. But Talks at Google, I bet you, if you look at their channel, you probably never heard of most of the people that are speaking there, keynote speakers and panelists. But very interesting commentary and, of course, predictions about what's going to happen in the world. Is it artificial intelligence? Robots are going to take over the world? Self-driving cars. People have been talking about self-driving cars for almost a decade. And even now, 2025, I think a couple of days ago, I heard that Uber is going back in on self-driving cars with a partnership with an electric vehicle. It's the same thing with electric vehicles. One day they're out, one day they're in. So anyways, artificial intelligence, that's a hot topic. But Talks at Google, I highly recommend it. So of course, with East Africa Showcase, I'm trying to create something similar because it doesn't currently exist that I know of. In downtown Toronto, it doesn't exist. Actually, there is one example where it does exist, but guess what? You got to pay a lot of money in terms of to enter the networking event, and I'll get to that later. It's called the Canadian Club. But Talks at Google, I'm pretty sure it's free to watch, and learn information, learn perspectives. And that's similar to what we're trying to do here. So yeah, Canadian Club is on the next slide. Canadian Club is usually downtown Toronto. And here's one local speaker that spoke at the Canadian Club. Okay, Canadian Club very recently, I think within the last year. I made these slides a while ago, but Her Worship, Olivia Chow. Yeah, Monday, January 29, 2024. We're now in 2025, so it's been a while. But yeah, that picture is pretty blurry. It wasn't blurry on my computer, but it's her. And guess what? You know what the entry fee was? It's at the Fairmont Royal York, downtown Toronto, Front Street, in front of Union Station. There's a huge hotel there. Her Worship, Olivia Chow. If you wanted to hear her live on this day, making a speech and talking about how we need to tax people more, you had to pay at least $1,000 per person to enter. The good thing is they provide food, so it's fine dining. But $1,000 per person, so someone's making a lot of money there. I don't know if the Canadian Club is profit, for profit, or non-profit. I have no idea. No idea. But $1,000 per person, a lot of people are making a lot of money. But guess what? She was there the whole day on this day. So the value of it was you got to hear a speech. I mean, you could hear a speech on the internet or on television all the time, but you got direct access to talk to her, and she'll sit down and listen to you, and she'll pretend that she's going to take action. Politicians, not only her, I have nothing against her, but yeah, you get direct access to talk to her after the networking event, after the speech, after the seminar, whatever it may be. So if I didn't have the limitation on the time and on the money that needs to get spent to rent a room for 2 or 3 hours, we could do that. We could do a seminar presentation, and we could do free-for-all. Anyone can talk to anyone. Unfortunately, I only got 1 hour because that's what I can afford. Okay, that's what I can afford. And yeah, that's the situation. But doing it every month, I guess eventually, maybe every 3 months, we can do it rent it out longer. I'll talk about that. Talk to the people who run the community center later. But yeah, so we can do longer events because I feel, so guilty that it's just a 1 hour presentation. And if you know anything about living in the GTA, people come from the East, people come from the West. It takes 1 hour to get anywhere, one way. 1 hour, 45 minutes. When your Google Maps says 45 minutes, that means 1 hour. So if you're traveling more than 25 or 30 or 40 or 50 kilometers, for sure, it's going to take you 1 hour, 1 hour one way. And then there's also going back home. And of course, I don't have the budget to make it, a 5-course meal, and you eat and you drink and everyone's happy, and so the trip is worth it. I don't have the budget for that. So, we're trying our best with snacks. We'll call it snacks. But not everyone lives in downtown Toronto. So, with events like this, Canadian Club, she's there the whole day. So she'll probably talk to every single person that paid $1,000 to enter that room. And yeah, all the other big shots too, because if you paid $1,000, all the other people that are sitting there paid $1,000, so you can make the connections that way. The best jobs and the best deals are unadvertised, okay? It's made in person. It's not made online. I don't think I added on these slides, but I keep getting scam emails, scam of the day. I'm gonna call it, for the next video, I'll probably add it. But anyways, in-person connection is essential. The only problem is it costs money. And in today's economy, no one wants to spend any money. So that's a little bit of a problem there. Okay, let's go. So let's talk news, okay? News is essential. In every single country, 200 countries on planet Earth, every single country has either state-run media or free enterprise, privately owned public utilities. That's how I think about the news. It's privately owned public utilities. So news is essential for many reasons. I'll get into the reasons. But yeah, in North America, most of the media besides CBC, is not state-run. And you might have heard in like the last week that through the Congress, PBS and NPR are now being defunded. Oh, it's like Ethiopia. I got a fly in the room with me. So I'm not alone. I got a fly, Zim. You know Zim? Okay, so, but news. It's being defunded in the United States. If conservatives ever get a majority government, which if things don't go well for Mark Carney, it's probably going to be a conservative majority. I mean, it was almost a conservative government. If you go back to the start of the year, everyone was voting conservative. And somehow Mark Carney cast a spell on the country, and he won the election. 43% of the vote, conservatives got 40%. So I can tell you, if this trade deal doesn't go well with Trump, and if it ends up being a situation where Canadians and Canadian companies that operate in Canada, are forced to pay 35% to export to the United States, that is going to be just the end of Canada, as Justin Trudeau once said. It's going to be the end. But thankfully, there is something called USMCA. And from what I understand, 75% of the things that the Americans accept under the free trade deal are being shipped to and from Canada tax-free, tariff-free. It's the other 25% that's going to face this 35% increase in tariffs on August 1st. So we'll see. 25% is still going to be substantial for the people that are in those industries. Okay, 35%. I think I said it in the last video. Are you expecting a 35% raise or a 35% more business if you're running a business in the coming year or in the coming 10 years? Probably not. Probably not. But if you are, talk to me. I'd love to know how you did it. When is the last time that you bought a newspaper? Okay, if you're under the age of 15, you probably don't know what a newspaper is. But when's the last time you bought a newspaper? I want you to think about that question in your mind. Okay? Because newspapers were very big in GTA and City of Toronto. Huge, just huge. 20 years ago, huge. And here are some of them. I hope someone's appreciating all these images because I worked hard to get them, but let me describe them. This was my favorite newspaper, actually, Toronto Sun. I used to read it every single week. Every single week. There was dial-up internet back in those days. So if you wanted to know the sports, who won the championship, what are the stats, points per game, PPG, all these different things, you'd have to go to the newspaper. Every day I was going to the newspaper. There was the Globe and Mail, probably the most respected out of the Canadian newspapers. And then, of course, there's a big one, Toronto Star, which focuses on local news. And that was their location, actually, One Yonge Street. They're tearing it down. They sold the building a long time ago, or they sold the lease a long time ago to a real estate developer, Pinnacle. I think they're from Hong Kong, I believe so. And anyways, they are going to now tear down the building that once housed all of those journalists, including the printing equipment and everything else. Let me just adjust my watch here to make sure that everything is going according to plan. Yeah, but the building is getting torn down for what? To build a condo. And it's going to be the tallest condo the world has ever seen. It's going to be taller than the CN Tower. Can you imagine? A residential building taller than the CN Tower? At least that's what I saw on the internet. Who knows? Maybe I was misinformed, but that's what I heard. One Yonge. It's a very important address. And anyways, Toronto Star, Toronto Sun, Globe and Mail, all of them are flatlining when it comes to business and when it comes to subscription. Do you think the Toronto Star would have sold their building or the land on One Yonge? Do you think they ever would have sold it if they were making more business in 2025 than in 2015 or 2005 or 1995 or 1985? What do you think? Proportionally to the expenses? Because expenses always increase for any business, for any household. Expenses always increase as you operate for longer. I don't know. Yeah, the only case is land, where you mortgage out the land and eventually you pay it off. But if you're renting the land, which a lot of buildings and a lot of companies actually do, because I think there's a tax credit if you lease a space. That's a tax credit. So a tax credit is subtracted from your income, your profit. So if you have no profits, if you're losing money, your tax credits are meaningless. So, anyways, that's a whole different story. Accounting. I like accounting. I gotta keep checking my watch because I need to make sure that we end on time here. They're gonna kick me out. They're not gonna give me one extra minute. So yeah, One Young has been sold, Toronto Star, and it used to be these machines, Toronto Sun machines, all over the place. Every single residential neighborhood, Toronto Star, Toronto Sun, and guess what? You got to pay someone to create the newspaper, and then you got to pay someone to distribute the newspaper and to be in all those different areas. So, yeah, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but the headline it says Viva Las Vegas there. So, how about posting media online? Is that as profitable as print? The short answer is no, as many of you can understand. Thousands of newspapers were selling daily 20 years ago. Okay, daily. Thousands. And we're talking about $2, $3 if it was on the weekend, Sunday Sun, Sunday Star, whatever, special editions, you would pay more for those editions. And thousands, just thousands, tens of thousands, I'm sure, at least on a weekly basis. And there are some newspapers I haven't even mentioned. National Post. At one point, there was a free newspaper, which was a printing. It was called Metro, and they were going to make all their money from advertising, but the cost of printing and distributing the papers was too high to recover the costs and even generate some positive cash flow for the organization, for the businesses, firms, FIRM, firm. Remember that. So most newspapers now offer digital subscriptions of $1 a week. So $1 a week means times $4 a month, 1 times 52 weeks in a year, $52 a year. $52 a year. Oh my God. And what do you think? How many of you have a subscription to any of those newspapers I mentioned? Probably nobody. And I'm not saying this to degrade the Canadian economy. I'm saying we need to invest in ourselves, because if we are not paying for Canadian products, for Canadian services, who else will? The advantage with digital subscriptions and why you can offer such a low price is because you're not printing. You don't need to pay for paper, specialized paper, as you know, with newspapers, and ink, and the machines, thousands and $1 million machines that do the printing. And of course, the distribution. Most jobs that are labor intensive involve distribution. So you don't have any of those costs, then you get a lower price. And the promise of the internet was, of course, that you can sell your content to people in the United States, to people in Europe, to people in Norway, to people in Africa, to people in South America, to people in Asia. Good luck with that. Good luck getting through the language barriers. But yeah, that was a promise. Unfortunately, what we've seen up to now, up to 2025, is that the world is really not buying Canadian products. Canada, at most, is about 2% of the world market. 2% out of 200 countries. Now, it's a G7 country because it has oil and gas and a strong manufacturing sector. The only reason companies manufacture in Southern Ontario mainly is because you can get the raw materials, and because it costs less than manufacturing in the United States. That's the only reason. And Mexico is even less costly because they have the human resource advantage. They have the labor. So yeah, digital subscriptions. If you've been to any of these newspapers and if you're familiar with paywalls, every time you see the headline catches your attention, and then you got to go through a paywall and you say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not subscribing. At $1 a week. $1 a week. I think most of us can find $1 a week. $1 in their pocket or at home or something. But $1 a week when they were selling newspapers for $2 a day. And that's it's a sad thing. But this is not an exclusively Canadian phenomenon. This is true in the United States, but the United States has Wall Street Journal, has New York Times, has LA Times, has all these different newspapers that people around the world continue to care about. So yeah, Canada, we don't have that advantage, of course. So yeah, that's just one thing that's going on with the news and with media in general. So here are the benefits of local media, non-monetary, okay? Non-monetary, having nothing to do with money, but why people in the past would pay for media. Because guess what? Local media keeps you informed. You stay informed of local events, things that are happening in your local community. We're living in apartment buildings, and we don't know what the hell is going on around us. We have literally no idea. Go to work, go to sleep, and then think about back home, wherever your back home is. And I'm okay with that. But if you're expecting your children and your grandchildren and to take care of you, how can they take care of you if they can't take care of themselves? Everybody has either a child or grandchild or sibling or relative, cousin, whatever, extended family as completely jobless. Why do you think that is? It's because nobody's buying Canadian products, Canadian services. Unless it comes from the government, unless it's sponsored by the government, state-sponsored, meaning healthcare, education, transportation, public transit. Do you think the TTC is profitable? They raise $1 billion in revenues and fares, but it costs $3 billion to operate the Toronto Transit Commission, okay? $3 billion. And I think I might have said that the last time, but just remember that. It is subsidized. Toronto Transit is definitely subsidized by the federal and provincial governments, for sure. But back on media, you can receive facts from local people that live in your environments. So they're not in New York, they're not in Abu Dhabi, they're not in the Middle East, they're not in wherever they are, Europe. These are people talking about Toronto issues, Toronto events, Toronto opportunities. How can we make informed decisions if we're misinformed, either uninformed or misinformed? How? How is it going to work? It's not. So that's why I'm doing this, East Africa Showcase, until somebody comes along and wants to talk about Ethiopia, because full disclosure, I've never been to Ethiopia since 2001, okay? A couple of weeks before the World Trade Center was taken down, September 11, 2001, a couple of weeks before that. That was the last time I was in Ethiopia. And even then, it was because a family member passed, but that's a whole different story. I'm not an expert on Ethiopia. So until then, I'm going to talk about what I am an expert in and what I think is important to tell you. And that is, in this case, to tell you about the Toronto economy, Canadian economy, Ontario economy, and what we can do together if we engage, if we communicate, if we get off our screens, get off our you-know-whats. I'm not going to say that. I got to keep this family friendly. And just get in the room and talk about the issues, present your ideas, present your products, present your services, and promote it. Okay? If you don't promote your product, who's going to know about it? Who's going to even think about buying it if you don't promote it? Online and, of course, in person. It's got to be a hybrid. It can't be only in person, because at the beginning, I wanted to do this only in person. And I realized very quickly that if I did that, it would be like today. I'd be sitting in a room, standing in a room alone. So you got to be online and contribute to the success of local jobs and businesses. That's what local media gives you. And the only problem is nobody's going to write a story. Nobody's going to make a video or talk about you in a positive light, refer you to others, unless you're paying them, generally speaking. Anything that you see is like, oh, Taco Bell has new bowls and new offers or whatever. I love it so much. No way. Recently I saw a TikTok video talking about how great Taco Bell is doing. And I don't want to hate on them too much. Maybe the workers were having a bad day. But you compare Taco Bell to Chipotle or others, there are others. There's something called Z-Teca. Z-Teca, I think, is a Canadian company. Z-Teca, they do Mexican food as well. And comparing that, yes, it's cheaper. Of course, it's cheaper than Chipotle. But oh no, that was not the best thing I've ever tasted. So she was exaggerating it, but that's her job, okay? When somebody comes to you and says, I'll pay you $2,500, they e-transfer it to you or they write you a check, you got to complete your end of the bargain and you got to promote it. So I'm not even gonna say who it was, but I'm not hating on her for saying that. But I think her herself, she's a food blogger, by the way. So yeah, a lot of women are into that. And so every video she makes is going to be positive if somebody's paying you in a sponsored post. And that's just how it is. So if we're just going to be scrolling our feeds and everything that we see around you, real estate, I mean, they talk about condominiums that are 500 square feet. And this is a place where I'm going to live for the rest of my life, 500. And I'm going to look out to the Lake Ontario and, lake views, everything is going to be perfect. No way. I mean, balcony, you might be on your balcony once or twice a week. You're not going to be on your balcony forever. You're not going to spend more time outside than inside in your residence. But that's the main thing I see on social media is like, oh, real estate is, everything is wonderful. But of course, that is what they make a living off of selling real estate. If you don't talk about it in a positive light, nothing's going to happen. So I get that. But we have got to engage each other in the absence of local media, in the absence and being swamped with ever since the internet started, when it was dial-up, when there were no smartphones, when it was harder to access things on the internet, even back then. If you look at most of the content, most of the websites, most of the articles that people were seeing online and engaging with, viewing, they were all from the United States or from overseas. Very little Canadian content. Justin Trudeau, he made a bill, Online News Act. One of the last things he did, he was trying to force Facebook and Google to pay online news companies because they're flatlining. Their revenues are going down. And it's been proven for many, many years that people are not willing to pay the online subscription fees, especially when they have so many subscriptions elsewhere, Netflix and others. And yeah, people spend most of their time online and it costs nothing. It costs nothing to be online. So trying to justify $1 a week or even more than that, $5 a week, is going to be a tough sell. It's going to be a tough sell, okay, for online experience when someone can experience the internet, whether it's legally or illegally through YouTube and Facebook and all the other services for free. And you can spend 3 hours on Instagram and not pay a damn penny. Or TikTok or Snapchat or, and go through the whole thing. But I'm running out of time, so I gotta hurry up. Here's another example of how difficult and costly media is, okay? I'm gonna go into a personal example of someone who I follow and someone who I respect. So I hope, if this blows up, all it takes is one person to share a video for it to become popular, but I don't think that's gonna happen. People don't wanna share my content. I'm okay with that. Don't share it, but keep watching. Keep watching, tell your family, tell your friends if you support what we're doing here with East Africa Showcase. All I can tell you is that we're gonna keep getting better. But here's a Canadian guy, actually, Alan Small Financial Group. So he has a show, I think, every 2 weeks. And he's a financial advisor. So every 2 weeks on the radio and on YouTube Live. So he has a lot of followers, by the way, And he delivers great economic content weekly on Canadian content, Ontario content, and sometimes Toronto content. I think his office is in Scarborough or something. So he broadcasts from his office. And that's cool. He does it sitting down. I like presenting standing up. That's a little different. But yeah, maybe I'll be on his show one day if he's watching this. The idea of the show is to promote his financial services group. So, of course, when you watch his show and he's talking about the macroeconomic environment, our interest rate's going to go down, our interest rate's going to go up, are they going to stay the same? The reality is nobody knows. Nobody knows until about 3 or 4 days before they make the announcement. Nobody knows when what's going to happen with the real interest rates, but it's very unlikely that they're going to increase interest rates as we stand here today, 2025. That would just be a death wish to many people. But how are they going to lower interest rate? Trump is certainly putting a lot of pressure onto Federal Reserve to lower interest rates because people are now no longer buying U.S. debt out of spite for the tariffs. You know, China, Japan, many Asian countries were the largest foreign buyers of U.S. debt, and they're still running a deficit. The deficit, I don't know what it's going to be next year, but the deficit in terms of what the government, federal government, U.S. federal government is spending, most of it on military, most of it on Medicare and Medicaid and all the different social programs. But military is the one thing that Republicans want to always increase, military. And, you know, it's probably a good thing. It's probably a good thing as long as they're responsible with it. Anyways, I don't want to get into politics. I mean, kind of not get into politics. Alan Small. So to promote his financial groups, and you watch it and you say, this guy knows what he's talking about. I'm going to go make an appointment with him at his office to talk about my finances. I have some money on the side that I'm not using. How can I give it to him? And is he going to make it, you know, double and triple and all these different things? At least, at the very least, with a financial advisor, after 2 or 3 years, the value of your portfolio should not go down, hopefully, if you're an expert, if you're giving your money to an expert. However, on how he makes his money, because nobody's paying him for a show and nobody's paying him when you're investing, you're not giving the money to your financial advisor, he gets a management fee, which is double or triple, or his firm gets a management fee, very substantial, 2% or 3%. So as your portfolio does well, doing whatever it's doing, equities, bonds, whatever, he and his firm collects a higher percentage. So you don't pay him directly, you pay him indirectly when one of his assets gets sold to you, meaning you buy into his financial strategy for you. So he's been seen on all the major networks. This is all Bell Media, CTV News, CP24, News Talk 1010. I was once on CP24. I was talking about Canada Day. I don't know how many people watched it. You know, I was not in great shape, but I said, it's now or never. You know, I wasn't camera ready, but I said, if I didn't do this now, I'm probably never going to do it. So I spoke about the country, and I do love Canada. I love Ethiopia. I love all countries, 200 countries, to be honest. But I love Canada for what it stands for. So I got to wrap this up. So he's been seen on all the major networks. And this is somebody who's been doing this for a while, okay? 10 plus years in business. So this is what he does for a living, okay? This is day job, night job. When you're running a business, it's 24/7, okay? Whether it's a physical business, you're selling physical goods, or whether it's a services business, you're on 24/7. The good thing is he doesn't have too many expenses, I guess, other than transportation. But his views, in terms of, if you go to his YouTube, he has some videos where he has 24,000 views. And sometimes even his latest views are maybe 10, 20, less than 100. So the only way you're going to make money on YouTube, if that's what you're dreaming of, you're going to be a content creator. I think those days are over of people getting paid a lot of money on YouTube. I think those days are over, but who knows? You need at least 100,000 views on every video. And there are some days where you don't want to make a video. That's the problem with content creation. Okay, you have writer's block. You don't know what the hell you're going to talk about. There's only so much you can showcase or present yourself folding laundry or playing with your kids. You know, there's only so much that you can do. And then, of course, there's always someone else showing off, you know, doing chores with their kids and all these different things. So, yeah, you know, Canadian content. This is not, once again, this is not to hate on Alan Small, but Canadian content creators almost always, if they're doing well, they're getting hundreds of views, not thousands. But all it takes is one person to come to him, make an appointment with him, and say, I got $10,000, I'm going to invest it. And then he collects his management fee, his commission. So, you know, don't underestimate 100 views, okay? And especially on YouTube, because what I've learned, I've tested it, is that YouTube is very accurate when it comes to views. So, yeah, he's doing a great job. Media is risky, but also very profitable if you have the viewers. So now I'm going to talk about television, okay? A little bit before we wrap up here. So this is Chorus Entertainment, 25 Dockside Drive. Many of you know when I was in post-secondary, I was a George Brown college student. They opened a brand new campus. I think it was 51 Dockside Drive, so it's right beside the Chorus Entertainment. Those were the only two buildings there for many, many years. Now you go there, they have these innovation hubs, they have all these condominiums made out of wood and made out of all these different things, but Chorus Entertainment, okay? Global News, YTV, and AM 640, another radio channel. I like radio, but they have many different brands, okay? And they were must have been making billions of dollars in terms of advertising, once again, because Chorus doesn't charge you directly, but they get paid by advertisers that want to put an ad on 640, want to put an ad on YTV, want to put an ad on Global News, and paying thousands of dollars. They haven't even lifted a finger. You know, they just took the video that you gave them and putting it on their network. So yeah, they have a huge slide in the building. You can't get in there unless you have authorization. So, but if you go there, maybe it depends on when you go there, but on weekends, it's completely empty. It's a ghost town there. And I'm pretty sure with the way television is going, it's a ghost town on weekdays too. But they have a slide in their office, okay? Somebody doesn't build a slide in their corporate office unless they have tens of millions of dollars to spend, okay? But I'm sure that's been there for a couple of decades. Anyways, unfortunately, Chorus is now operating at a $960 million loss. I did a lot of work to show you. In 2021, they were making $1.54 billion. Now they're making $127 billion. But if you look at their expenses, cost of goods sold is only down $10 million. And the gross profit is also down from $1 billion to $740. And then, of course, net operating income, I didn't put net income here. It went from $263 million, that's a lot of money, to now minus $950 million. That's almost $1 billion. So even if you say it's a one-time thing, $1 billion, how are you going to recover from that? It's going to be a tough thing. But if you look at their operating expenses, it's almost doubled from $739 million to $1.69 billion. That is a huge amount of money to be losing. So what are operating expenses? Quickly, operating expenses are essential in maintaining the business infrastructure to run operations and generate sales. So one of the costs to operate East Africa Showcase is the room. I don't own a multi-purpose room, but I need the room to do the event. So that's my main dilemma. Where am I going to get the money? If I'm not charging people, where the heck am I going to get the money? But the most significant expense is always being rent, because that has nothing to do with you or your business. To be honest, most landlords, commercial landlords, residential landlords, they don't care what you're doing in the space that they rented out to you. All they care about is August 1st, getting that rent on the first of the month. As long as you keep doing that, you'll never hear from your landlord. Isn't that an interesting thing? You'll never hear from your landlord unless you haven't paid your rent in 2 or 3 months. And then, of course, you go through the process of evictions. So it's the same thing in business too. Lastly, let's do another year-by-year comparison. So this is actually on the radio segment and the television segment. Fiscal year 2024, 93 million, almost 100 million, 1.2 billion, almost 1.2 billion on the television. So television has always been a higher revenue generating than radio, because you can actually see people. On radio, you only hear voices. But if you look at 2023, it was actually above 100 million, and now 1.41 billion in 2023 for television, and they're down. They're down almost 400 million. Down. That's in 1 year, 2023 to 2024, and the pandemic was over. So you can't blame the pandemic. And 16% decrease is not something that you want to see, because it's a lot harder to increase 1.18 billion by 16%. I'm not even going to do the math on that, but yeah, 400 million. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm getting the wrap up because it's now 8:50, so they're about to kick me out. But all I want to show is that this is a Canadian company we're talking about. We're talking about Chorus Entertainment. And if they're not doing the reporting, if they're not doing the youth entertainment, if they're not doing the radio stations, who is? Who is going to do it? The government doesn't have enough money to replace the footprint of private radio and television broadcasters. But if the viewership is on TikTok and it's on Instagram and it's on YouTube and nobody's paying, very few people are paying. If you look at YouTube Premium, less than 10% of users pay for YouTube Premium without ads. And by the way, YouTube Premium, you also have YouTube Music. So it's not like they're not doing a good job of making it a value, but people are not paying the content. So for the content, and so it's very unlikely. As I mentioned, I think previously the Online News Act was designed to get money from Facebook, from Google, to companies like Chorus and many, many other companies like it. But Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg is the guy who runs Facebook completely. He's the largest shareholder. He's like Jeff Bezos of Amazon. Nothing happens at Facebook without Mark Zuckerberg. But Zuckerberg, as soon as he heard about Online News Act, he fought it in court. He told them, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And then they just withdrew. You can no longer see news from Global News and other outlets. BlogTO, you can't find it on Instagram because of Canadian legislation. So that was his solution, just remove the news from his platforms. Anyways, whether you agree with it or not, he has that kind of power. So that's the power of big tech, okay? They are influencing you, influencing what you see, and primarily they only care about the profit. They only care about you spending more time on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Snapchat, on whatever platform you name, Twitter, Elon Musk, $44 billion. He put $44 billion, never forget that, into Twitter. Twitter is not even worth $10 billion now, but whatever he's calling it, X. And that is influencing you. And of course, it's free. So you're going to keep going back there and you're not going to pay for these. And advertisers are not going to pay to advertise on Canadian companies, on Canadian radio stations, television, unless it's a better value proposition than advertising online. So, and by the way, you don't have to talk to anyone to advertise on Facebook. You don't have to talk to anyone to advertise on TikTok. It's literally a form, one-page form, and congratulations. If they approve it, you're immediately on other people's feed, people that don't follow you. And so that kind of reach is going to be very, very tough for Canadian radio and television to match. And new platform revenue, quickly, that's internet streaming, which they also have, by the way. I think it's called Stack TV for Chorus. Bell Media is called Crave TV, and there's so many others. Still, only counts for 12%, and that's where they're paying subscription fees. 12% of the business revenue. I worked hard to get this number for you, so it's an accurate number, by the way. So I might as well mention it, but it's generally radio, television, print. Most of the money is in advertising. And hopefully East Africa Showcase, if we become a success, it's going to be an advertising too. Because, yeah, nobody knows what the turnout is going to be. And if I charge even $5, the room will be empty. So, yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. How can people expect jobs and get paid for their work if they're not paying for other people's work? Someone please explain that to me. The government is going to provide it. The government is going to build buildings. It's going to feed us food. It's going to build cars for us. I don't know. I don't know where we're going in Canada. But, you know, in conclusion, let's end here because I got 5 minutes left. I actually did a pretty good job on time because usually I'm overboard. I have a new setup here. I now have the television on this side and I can see the screen. So it's telling me the time on the screen. So now I have the time. But in conclusion, media is very important. You might say that I'm not in the media business. I work for the government. I work in healthcare, education, where guess what? if you sign up for government, usually that means you graduated in something, first of all. So you made the investment in education, and then you got the return. You had a good job interview, and you have satisfactory performance. Otherwise, they wouldn't be keeping you there. When you hire someone for a job, when you pay them, whether it's healthcare, education, anything else, transit, media, they're hiring you because they trust you. So the hard thing is trust. The money is an even harder thing because everyone's living paycheck to paycheck and getting $5 for, even myself. In the past several weeks, the only time I spent more than $50 is something that's related to a car, owning a car, which is fuel. Fuel usually costs some money. And repairing anything to have a car, you're talking about hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, or replacing the brakes. So excluding cars and excluding rent, I have only, hold on, we'll keep the last slide. I've only spent more than $50 very rarely, probably once a month. If at most I've spent more than $50 on a discretionary item, meaning something you can live without. Oh, haircut too. Haircut is actually $30. So even on haircuts, nobody's willing to spend more. But if you want your barber to keep doing a good job for you, you'll add a tip. Hairstylist. I mean, nobody's going to do a good job for you for free. So yeah, really, but I haven't been to a hair barber in a while. So that hasn't happened. But yeah, spending more than $50 on anything is a tough thing. It's a tough sell. And yet, I think in a week or a couple of days, we have an Ethiopian guy that sings songs called Abel the Weekend coming to Toronto and charging $500 a ticket. The whole Sky Dome, the whole Rogers Center, baseball fields, football fields, all over North America, all over Europe, all over the world are paying to watch him sing his songs. So it is possible. It is possible. As long as you don't give up. And as long as you don't expect to make money quickly, okay? In business, in any organization, do not expect to make money quickly. Don't quit your day job. No matter how much you hate it, no matter how miserable you are, do not quit your day job because it's your previous investment that got you into your day job, and that's how you're paying your bills. So do not quit your day job. I would never recommend that to anyone. Tell your employer, tell your managers about what you want to do in terms of business, but disclose it to them. I did that with my employer, and they said, good luck with that. But do not quit your day job and keep working at it. Keep trying to improve. Control your costs. Do not overspend. Do not think that people are going to pay you more because you're spending more money on technology. Buy things that are essential. The room, only do the bare minimum. Pay for what you need, okay, in the early innings of business. Signs, stickers. I'm going to do stickers in the very near future because I'm trying to promote the YouTube channel. I just don't know where I'm allowed to post stickers or not. But you'll see a lot more of East Africa Showcase in the weeks and months to come. So just to close on media, building a media presence in Canada takes time and is not easy, but it is so worth it. Okay, it is so worth it. Just remember that. And everyone needs media to succeed. You need to be able to speak publicly, one-on-one with somebody that you don't know and somebody that you know. If they're hostile, go your separate ways. But we have to engage each other. Public speaking, whether it's one-on-one conversation, 1 to 10 people, 1 to 20 people, 1 to 100 people, 1 to 100,000 people, we've got to be able to have conversations in order to improve our personal economic situation and the economic situation of this country and of wherever you're watching this from. Okay? Thank you very much. This is Tesor Mogas. Thank you for watching. I sincerely thank you for watching to the end, and I hope to see you in the next video. I hope you learned something. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good night, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Have a great day. Thank you.